Hello, hello, welcome back to At the Base of the Baobab Tree. I'm not going to do an intro today, and instead we're going to listen to one of Arnold's songs, but I just wanted to say one quick note that the video quality is not super great on this video, as we had to record it over screen grab due to technical difficulties. And if you want to listen to it on Anchor or Spotify or Apple Podcasts, there are links available to all of those options as well. Alright guys, here it is, episode 4. Arnold Kalobwe, Growing Up Music, an extended narrative.
Yeah. I mean, you could crop it later,
Yeah, I'll just crop it later.
Yeah.
At this point, just getting anything that works even reasonably well is a win.
Hey, This is Africa.
Juices all night like.
Ayo, Parrish, this shit high, boy.
I took 2 pills. Don't worry, girl, I'll be alright. She loves cheap thrills. So when she looking at me when I got my ice on. How right now? Shawty like how? Wow. Feel like I'm a drum.
Yeah, I need a little something, trying to snap back to reality. I feel some type of way, you can feel it in my melodies. Like it's a lucid dream and I need to fully wake up. I know you've been calling me, but I ain't finna pick up. I swear I didn't mean it, but I left you in red. Girl, I know I'm the reason, we just hang by a thread. Oh, right now, I feel like I'm a drown. I feel my body going down from where I stand. Just like right below my feet is quicksand. Girl, I don't mean to be a little distant. I'm really sorry, shawty, would you understand?
I took 2 pills. Don't worry, girl, I'll be alright. She loves cheap thrills. So when she looking at me when I got my ice on. How right now? Shawty like how? Wow. Feel like I'm a drum.
I'm drifting far from you, but all I want is just to be a part of you. Like, oh, right now, I feel like I'm a drown. Drifting far from you, but all I want is just to be a part of you. Like, oh, right now, I feel like I'm a drown.
Arnold, how's it going, man?
Hey, it's going pretty good, man. How's it going?
It's going really well. We spent a while trying to get this all up and running, but we got it now, so that's really great.
Oh, yeah. I think it's almost been 45 minutes trying to get this going.
Yeah, eventually screen grab on WhatsApp was the best call, but that's the way to go sometimes.
Yeah, got it. What can you do?
What can you do, man? Well, we got so much that I'd love to talk about. Maybe the first thing we should jump into, congratulations, by the way, on over 4,000 streams on your new song, Drown, a new single.
Thanks.
That's huge. I wonder if maybe you could elaborate a little bit on the story of that song and how that came to be, and just talk a little bit about that.
Oh, yeah. So, my latest single, Drown. So that's my first song out since coming back from my break. That break goes on. Yeah. And so how that song came to be, well, I found the instrumental on YouTube, actually. It was by some producer. I hit him up and was able to get it. And, well, basically, there's not much to it. There's not, it doesn't have, a pretty cool story behind the song or, deeper meaning or whatever. It's just, it's one of those, a lot of songs that I write nowadays, it's just, you hear the instrumental. Mostly I start with, I used to write and then find an instrumental for it. I'll get a beat made for the song that I wrote, but now I just find beats and write to the beats. So that way whatever hits me, whatever I feel like the beat is saying back to me is just what I end up writing. And that one, it came with the hook, so I just wrote to that.
Sweet. Yeah, that's cool. So maybe talk a little bit about the break then, because you were writing some music for a while, and then after you had been working on some stuff, and I remember when I met you that you were in the thick of making music for around that time. That was 3 years ago, and then you took a break.
Yeah.
and you just come back to it. So maybe you could talk a little bit about your process and how you went from making music to taking a break and then finding your way back to making music again.
Okay. Well, I'm just gonna start like from the break. I was thinking I might even throw it back because that the whole thing could be like,
yeah, throw it back,
going back to way back to like when the whole thing kind of started.
Yeah, that's what this is all about. This is all about stories. So if it's a good story, man, all the way back.
Basically the music had always been like a part of my life, I guess. Even if I wasn't making it, I was probably listening to it a lot. And so, yeah, as early as I can remember, I was always like in Sunday school would sing, and so it was always like a major part of my life. And so just in the beginning, it just used to be something that I thought everybody kind of did. Actually, like I remember this when I was like younger. I used to think I knew some guys couldn't sing, but I used to think all females could sing.
Okay.
Right? Yeah, I for whatever reason, I just always thought all females could sing because like all the females around me, like all the females in my life as a child, they could all sing pretty much. That's what I thought, right? Until like I grew up a bit older, then I figured out, oh, not everybody can sing.
A rude awakening.
So yeah, basically, I grew up in a home with Christian values, obviously, and so it was, as a kid, I was very shadowed, and like I was everything about my life was monitored, just like pretty much all children that grow up in like Christian homes and stuff. So I by default, I grew up on contemporary Christian music. So I grew up on like Casting Crowns is my favorite growing up, and those Michael W. Smith, Mercy Me, and the like. I'm sure you know the list. I grew up on that, and we'll have jam sessions, and we'll just like sing, and I always enjoyed that. That was always like one thing I really enjoyed doing as a kid. Amongst the many things I enjoyed doing, music was always like different, everything. Because I'm very into a lot of different things. Like I'm into a lot of things. I'm interested in a lot of things. I end up doing a lot of things, but for some reason, music was always something that just like stood out. Like in as much as how I enjoyed doing it, like it was something that really stood out. If I wasn't making music, I would be listening to it. And I learned to play the guitar when I was like 10. I'm one of those people that like didn't practice as much. So as soon as I got the gist of it, I was like, oh, I'm good.
Yeah, I know how to play it.
I didn't take it like that. But yeah, so when I was 10, around the same time I started writing songs too. I would write music. I would write my own. Yeah, so it was around that age, and I had a mentor, or her name is Carrie. But yeah, so she's the one that taught me how to play the guitar, and I was like 10 at the time, man. By the time I was 12, I started playing the bass guitar, and that became like my thing. So I was the bass guy. So I played bass in church ever since I was 12. So I've been playing the bass guitar for a long time. And aside from that, I could also sing. I could actually sing at the time. And so I did that. So I wrote songs, and I played the bass guitar, and I played a little bit of everything else. I just kind of went around. I never really focused on anything when it came to instruments. I didn't focus as much on any other instrument than I did the bass guitar. So the bass guitar was my thing, and I just loved playing the bass, man. It was like it's super dope. I thought it was the coolest instrument.
I play the bass as well,
a lot
and
of
it's
people say
so
drums, but but yeah. Anyway, so I played the bass for a really long time, and I continued writing music, and I think I gradually got better because the songs I wrote were pretty bad. Looking back at them now, like that, I'm pretty sure that's the case with everybody that's written music for a long time. Nobody likes to hear their old stuff. But yeah, I was pretty fortunate. Like I actually started recording music just around the time I started writing it. So for most people, they actually get the time to develop as like writers and songwriters, and then by the time they start recording, their stuff is actually decent. But I got lucky enough to be around a place where they were recording music at the very near the time I just started writing. So, and I was able to record the stuff that I just wrote, and I was just a newcomer into the songwriting game. I was like 12 years old, and yeah, I was recording my own stuff. I think I was 12 when I recorded my first song, and at the time it was like mega. It was like a big thing, you know.
And now, you have to live with it. Now you have to hear it all the time, and you're like, oh, not the old song.
Exactly. Except I don't have the files. So Carrie, my mentor, she's the one that has all of them. It's okay. She can keep them. I don't want to hear them anyway.
I love that.
But yeah, so yeah, that was me. I started recording just around the time I actually started writing. But the thing was, I was just ecstatic about listening to my own songs, though. Like that's the reason nobody else has them except the person that recorded them, which is Carrie. And yeah, so when I actually started doing music and recording music, it was just for me, basically. So I recorded a bunch of songs and nobody ever heard them, right? And it was just my thing. It was just something I always enjoyed doing. But yeah, so, and then around the time I was like 15, 16, so my voice cracked. I didn't always have this deep voice. I used to have a lower tone, a higher pitched voice.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, pretty much every guy has to go through it when your voice cracks, and that really changed up a lot of things. Because I used to actually sing. I played the bass and I sang in like church. Mm-hmm. So that changed. Like I remember when my voice was spending time. It was during the holidays, and I was spending time at one of my auntie's places. And I was at her house, and I didn't really know a lot of people around the area. I was just visiting at the time, and so I spent a lot of time just indoors and just chilling. So I watched a lot of TV. I didn't really go out. I didn't know anybody, so I was quiet for a long period of time. So I remember I'd stayed for like 3 days. I hadn't talked that much, and this one day I tried to talk, and it sounded different. Like I could actually hear it. I was like, oh, what? And so I tried clearing my throat, thinking there might be something wrong with my throat or something. And it was just like, nah, son, you grown.
Wait, so you didn't speak at all for 3 days, and then you talked, and you're like,
pretty
oh,
much.
shoot.
I think I stayed quiet for a really long time, and I just spoke, and I was like, whoa.
That's hilarious. That's amazing.
Yeah, so that was like, it wasn't a change that was gradual where like you didn't even notice it. No, I actually noticed it. I'm like, that's not how I sound. Right? So that changed a whole lot of things. I was like,
You're
yeah,
like,
it was.
we're gonna
it
move
was
to a
not
different
fun
style
at
of
the
music
time.
now.
Exactly. So I was like, I can't sing like this. So I just stopped singing. I just didn't sing anymore. I just played the bass and other instruments, I guess. So until it hit me, I was like, I was just kind of at the time, I was just kind of a fan of hip hop. I wasn't like into hip hop as much. It was just something I listened to here and then. But I'd actually piqued interest in hip hop a while ago. It just wasn't the main thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember the first rap song I ever heard that like had me like that was stuck in my head for the first time ever in my life. I think I was like 8 years old. Well, when I heard, you probably wouldn't know who this is, but there was a rapper back in the 2000s called Chameleonaire.
Okay.
And he had a song called Riding, and that was the first rap song that I can remember listening to. I probably heard rap songs before that, but none of them ever stuck. That was the first one, but since I grew up in a Christian home, and like I wouldn't be exposed to hip hop like that, because like I remember back in the day, hip hop was not like considered
Clean or
anywhere,
something, right?
Yeah, clean music at all. Like nowadays, it's different. But I know they had like Christian rappers back in the day, but I don't know. There was a stigma around it at the time. So
It was kind of like when rock first started too, right? It was the same thing where everyone was like, "Oh, that's not,
yeah,
that's the devil's music," or whatever people would say.
Exactly. So. Yeah,
which is what people tend to
always
say about whatever they don't understand, right?
Yeah, so I was always kept away from that. But like time to time you could hear stuff on the radio, but never really piqued my interest to that point where it's like the main thing. All the way up through like till 2008 was when it started really peaking. But still at the time, I remember I was just more of a singer. But the thing that I think I gradually started listening it to hip hop was like I had an older roommate at the time. He used to listen to a lot of T.I. So that was the first artist in hip hop that actually piqued my interest in. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. I would listen to when he would listen, because he had like a stereo and he'll play it aloud. So I'd kind of listen to it, and I was like, oh, I'm kind of digging this.
Yeah.
And I guess that's when it started to gradually build in terms of interest into hip hop. And then Carrie, again, who's my mentor, she was like, oh, I have something you might actually love listening to at the time. And this was like back in 2008. Yeah. And it was a Lecrae song. It was by Lecrae. It featured Tadashi, and the song was called Go Hard. At the time, he had just released an album called Rebel, which, by the way, is like one of my personal favorite rap albums of all times. And I remember hearing that, and I was just like, wow, this is dope. That's when I actually started getting into hip hop. I was like, I want to listen to more of this. And I started, I listened to a lot of Lecrae, and I guess he had a lot of influence in terms of my music. That's when I gradually started rapping a little bit. I'll like write rhymes and just try to write verses off them. So it was like a weird way of writing rap, because I didn't know how it was done or whatever. So it actually, when I started, I would actually just write a bunch of words that rhymed, and I would just pick whichever and put them at the end of the sentences and try to come up with the beginning part. So it was corny.
So amazing songs is what you're saying.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'll gradually do that, but I'll just do that. Nobody knew I do that. And so after my voice cracked, right? I'm like, I can't sing anymore, whatever. So I was like, yeah, maybe I could just rap. And I was like, yeah, I'll just rap. And I just kind of started from there. And yeah, so I got into a lot more of CHH, which is Christian hip hop. So I really started getting into that. So I was already on Lecrae, and I just got into like the entire 116 crew, which had like Tadashi and Trip Lee and KB joined, and just the group started growing, and I was like there from that time, and I listened to a whole lot of that. So I started writing. I'll write and recorded carries. I'll write and recorded carries all the time, but still a couple years and nobody heard my music. Like, I didn't put it out. Like, oh, listen to my song. I'll maybe tell my friend, my best friend. I'll just like, oh, listen to this. I wrote this, and he'll be like, oh, that's cool, man. Whatever. And it was just that. It was just that. So it was never something I was like, I'm going to be doing this as a thing or making anything out of it. It was just something I really loved doing. So anytime I have free time, I'll just rap. Anytime I'd have free time, I'll just try to rap, write rhymes and stuff. And so I think I gradually started getting better. And after a while, I actually started to tell. I'm like, oh, I am getting better, so I guess I'll just keep doing it. And gradually, I got better. And then, and at the time, throughout this entire time, I went to a private school. I went to Grace Academy. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's a private school, and it was so small where, like, you know everybody. Like, you literally know everybody, and everybody knows you. So it was different when I went to high school. When I went to high school, I went to a public school. So it was my first time going to a school where there was like a whole lot of people, and it was different. So when I went to high school,
people? Like, maybe just break down a little bit what your high school looked like, because I'm not sure if it was similar to what high schools are like here.
So you'd have like the largest classes would even have like 100 and something people in a classroom. Wow. So it was pretty. So it was big. But my classroom, we only had like, I remember my classroom was like 63. Okay. And that was like on the lower end. That was on the lower end of things. So yeah. So I went to high school. And I don't know about, I think your guys' start in like grade 9 or something. Our high school started in like grade 10. So you start high school in grade 10. So after grade 9, grade 10, you go into high school. And I went into a public school in grade 10. And yeah, it took me a while to adjust to the difference. And I'm not the quiet person. I'm not usually just the quiet kid. But when I went to the school, I actually was, because it was so different. I was not used to that many people. I'm used to going to school and knowing everybody and everybody knowing me, and so it was super different. It took me a while to adjust to the whole thing, and so in grade 10, I got into grade 10. I was still writing music at the side, and nobody knew about, and so there's I discovered there was a thing that went on at high school. They had on Fridays, so a lot of kids will gather the field, like the soccer field, and they'll like make a gathering and some sort, be in a circle, and you would have like rap battles there. Oh yeah. So people would rap battle there. I was like, so I remember the first time attending one of those things. I was so psyched. I watched the battles and they were like fire. I thought they were super good. And I thought that was really awesome. I'm like, this is nice. So I kept going to those. So like every Friday I'll go and just like listen to dudes rapping, and it was really cool. And so there was this one day, I don't know where it came from. I was like, you know what? I think I'm gonna try doing it. I think I can kind of rap, right? So so I wrote some rhymes, whatever. Yeah, and I remember that week that I was gonna do it. I'm like, this Friday, I'm actually gonna rap. So I told my friend who's pretty much the only other person that knows about me rapping. And yeah, he's like, yeah, you should do it. And at the time, none of my classmates, like at the time I'd already made friends in class and other classes, I guess, but none of them knew I rapped. And that Friday, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go in. So I went in, and I remember first, and everyone was impressed. So like, you could rap? I was like, yeah, but nobody really knew. And it was a lot of people that was like, oh man, you should do it more. You should do it more often. You should always be coming in and your raps. That was really cool. And cause like a lot of guys could actually rap in Bemba when they did the raps, and I came in and I rapped in English because I listened to a lot more English rap than I did the Bemba stuff. So I ended up just rapping in English instead of Bemba. So yeah, and I did that, and few people started knowing I could actually rap, and it was cool. And later on, I met another dude from the area who, he didn't go to our school, but he was like in the area where my school is located. Mm-hmm. He had like a home studio, so a lot of guys could actually recorded songs from his place. And yeah, so he invited me. He was like, oh, you should come over to the studio and we could do something. And I'd never recorded with other people before or anything. I remember going to his house, and there were other people in his room. There was like a few guys in his room, which was weird. This is like...
it was like what you would expect.
He had a whole... Yeah. He had a whole setup in his room, and it was pretty dope.
That's sick.
Yeah, so I didn't go there to record at the time. I was actually just checking it out. And he was just finishing up a song that he did with another guy. And I was like, I heard it. The beat was super dope. I'm like, that's cool. Can I jump on that? Can I write to that? And he's like, yeah, sure. And so, yeah, he got me, and they played the beat. Right there, I wrote a little verse, and I rapped on it. He was the guy that would record music and put it out. To me, it's just, you record music, it stays on your computer, you listen to it yourself, right? Like, I never thought of like, oh, let me put it out for people to listen to. I wasn't even on social media or anything at the time. Mm-hmm. Like none of that was in my head at the time. So yeah, so when I recorded, since it was his song, he actually put it out, and people from school downloaded it and stuff. And yeah, so from there, a lot more people knew I could actually rap. And yeah, so from there, I was like, oh, let me a bit more. So I gradually started recording songs, gradually started getting better at it. And yeah, so from there, I graduated high school. And at the time, I was like, graduating high school, going to uni pretty soon. So yeah, I didn't know what I was going to do with the music, but I was like, you know what, let me actually try to give it a shot and try to see where it goes. So I recorded my first, well, at the time, I actually went by a different stage name. When I was in high school, I went by a different stage name. Then I came up with the Kay Rok thing. And so
yeah, a little bit later, you'll have to touch on how you came up with the Kay Rok name, because I love that. I think that's super sick. But continue with your story.
Yeah. Well, might as well get into it now because like
Sure.
before, I used to be called hashtag, and I just used to go by the name hashtag, like nothing to it, just hashtag. That was my. I know.
So good.
Don't ask me how I came up with that. I have no idea. But yeah, in high school, I was the hashtag the rapper. Right? It doesn't sound like anyone trying to take their music seriously, right?
It's amazing.
Yeah, so I was just hashtag at the time. And yeah, so I graduated high school. I'm like, yeah, I probably need to come up with a new name. This was not going to fly. And so, yeah, so the Kay Rok, the K comes from my names. So my full names are Arnold Kalobwe. So I have two names with the K. My middle name and my surname.
Okay.
Both starting with the K. And actually, people that are related to me actually call me by my middle name more than they do my first name. Like if you ever came to one of my relatives' houses and said, I'm looking for Arnold, they'll be like, who? It would take a while to click that you're talking about me, because everybody just has always gone by my middle name. Everybody that's related to me, at least. Because growing up, I wouldn't let anybody call me that.
Call you Arnold?
No, call me by my middle name, which is Kalobwe. I was like, no, that's not my name. I always preferred Arnold to Kalobwe. So, but yeah, so that's where the K comes from. Because, like, in short, they'll just call me K for Kalobwe. They'll just call me K, and I just added The Rock because it sounded cool, like Dwayne Johnson, The Rock. I just spelled it different, just drop.
There you go.
The Rock. Also, I was going to go by something with Rocky, to do with Rocky, the name, but I was like, I don't want to use Rocky, so I just dropped the C and the Y and just the R-O-K, and so it was just Kay Rok.
Yeah, it's sick. It's a cool name.
Yeah, thanks. So, yeah. After that, after high school, now I'm like, okay, I'm going to give myself, I remember calling up one of my friends, and I was like, you know what, I'm actually going to try and give this music thing a shot. I'm going to try and put out music and see what happens. And he was like, yeah, you should. But I told him, I remember telling him, like, I'm going to just give it 3 years. I'm going to try and see where it goes in 3 years. If nothing happens, I'm not going to waste more time trying to focus into music. And I'll probably still do it. I just won't give it that much focus and attention. So, yeah, so that's when it started. I remember I put out my first song as Kay Rok, and it was called Mr. Phenomenal. So basically it was just like a feel-good rap song where, like, I'm showcasing my rap abilities. And so it just ended up being called Mr. Phenomenal, because Mr. Phenomenal was a nickname that was given to me by a friend of mine in high school.
It's a pretty cool nickname.
Yeah. Yeah, because in high school I used to be into, like, everything, basically. So I was into sports. You
play a lot of soccer, right? Or football?
Yes, I play a lot of soccer. I actually played throughout my high school. I played for the volleyball team, I played for the basketball team, and I played for the soccer team also. I did track and field. Yeah, I was a high jumper from my school, actually.
Oh,
so
sweet.
I did a lot of things. So somehow I got the name Mr. Phenomenal by one of my friends. And so that kind of just stuck. So actually, a lot of people actually just called me that, which was weird.
Yeah, I bet. It's like, hey, Mr. Phenomenal, how's it going? You're like, just call me Arnold. It's all good.
Yeah. So anyways, I put out my first song as Kay Rok, and I called it Mr. Phenomenal. And with the first song, I remember putting it up on there used to be, I think it's down now. There used to be a Zambian streaming platform that was kind of coming up at the time. I remember doing pretty good, and it did really good when it came out. And I reached out to like one of a radio hosts, and yeah, he was like, "Yeah, you should come in." And I did an interview, and it actually aired on radio, and it was like it did pretty decent for like a debut song, right?
Yeah, that's super cool.
Yeah. So that was like that was really encouraging, because that was just at the time I was like, let's see what happens, right?
And what kind of radio show was this? Was this like a countrywide or like more local, or like what was the?
Well, it's a countrywide radio station, and it was like a hip hop segment. So it was like on a hip hop segment, and I got interviewed, and the song got aired, and was pretty cool. They actually played it for a while, like it ran on radio for a while.
Sweet.
And yeah, so I had people hitting me up like, "Oh, we heard you on the radio," at the first time. And this was at the point where I just got into uni for the first time, and so I was in uni at the time. I just dropped my first song, and I had an EP going with the single also. So I had it had 4 tracks, I think. It had 4 tracks at the time. And I went to university, and I dropped out after the first semester. Yeah.
Okay. What were what were the circumstances of that? Like why you dropped out? And
well, because the main thing was I wasn't really into what I was doing, because I hadn't even really started like the whole program thing. It was just like very beginning, and I wasn't feeling it. I'm
general
like,
stuff.
Yeah, because like initially I wanted to go into something to do with construction. So the main thing I really wanted to do was architecture. I couldn't go to the school that was doing it, because at the time they were rioting. Like, this school was pretty wild. So, and sadly, it's the only place in Zambia where you could do it, right? So I was told I wasn't allowed to apply there, because it wasn't doing very well. I remember being like, darn, what am I going to do now? So I was like, oh, well, since I was going to go into architecture, so I could do civil engineering instead. So after I dropped out of uni from the first one, so let me put this straight.
Yeah.
So I wanted to go into at the Copperbelt University, which was at the time shut down because there were a lot of issues and stuff. So I wasn't allowed to go there. It wasn't operating at all. So I went to Northrise University, and I got into computer science, because I thought, hey, I like computers. I'll probably like.
There you go.
I'll probably like computer science, right?
Famous last words.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I got into it just from the get go. I was like, yeah, no, this is not right. This is not going to sit well with me. So, yeah. I talked to Susan and people from CISA. They actually pay for my school, and I asked them, saying, could I change, because I don't think I'm in the right program. And they were very understanding about it, and they were like, okay, you could do so, but I had to figure out what I was going to do. I think this is the sort of thing that some of students have to go through, is like try to figure out exactly what you're going to do, because like we just don't have it figured out at all. And the other thing, I think the other thing that contributed to to me not knowing exactly what I was going to do is the fact that I actually mentioned it. I'm into a lot of things. Like, I enjoy doing a lot of things, right?
Yeah.
And in as much as I was doing music at the time, it wasn't a viable option. It's not something I could just, especially being from a third world country, it's not just something you can say, hey, I'm going to do music and live off of. Like, I know everywhere it's like, that's a hard thing to just be a full-time musician. That's like super hard everywhere. But I think it's even harder when you're here in a country, in a kind of country I'm in. And I knew that. So I wasn't just going to say, oh, I'm just going to be a musician. In as much as that would be cool. Yeah. But it just wasn't going to fly.
It's like wasn't
going to work.
All of the odds are just like against you if you're going to choose to do that. And so it's one of those things where you could, if you're really, really good, but you need more evidence maybe than you would need elsewhere in order to even consider doing something like that.
Yeah. So I took a year off and I actually got back into construction. I started working. I worked for a friend of mine. Yeah, he's from Canada too, and he had been in Zambia for a while at the time, and he just started working for He worked for an organization where he was in charge of building stuff. So I got him to get me a job. He hired me, so I started working for him. And I worked for him for a year. And it was during that time that my music actually started taking off. Because when I asked, his name's James, by the way.
Okay.
So when I asked James for a job, I was like, can I get your construction company or the organization he was working for? And so he gave me a job, but he didn't. I was thinking I was going to be doing the kind of construction work that I'd expect, like actually as a laborer, or as like doing mixing concrete, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Laying blocks. But no, that's not the job I actually. I got a super boring job. I was a store manager. So they had a storage unit where they'll keep everything, all the construction equipment and a bunch of other stuff. And I was in charge of the place. And my job was to not leave that place at all. So half the time I'll just be sitting there, right? It was not rosy at all. It was like, yeah, it was very depressing at times.
So, but you would have rather been on like just working in like the field, you think?
Yeah,
that's fair.
I'm a hands-on type of guy. Like,
yeah. And for people who haven't,
I just can't.
I was just saying, for people who haven't like worked in construction before, it might sound like, oh, this manager would be the dream job, and it's no fun at all to work. But it's actually like, for people, a lot of people who do it, and I've worked it before, and as you say, you have. It's actually kind of fun to build things and see like, oh, I did that. Like that's because of me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's very satisfying. Yeah, but yeah, that's the kind of stuff I actually like doing. Like actually getting there and being part of the work. But no, I actually got in trouble for that at first. So when he first hired me, so I started managing the store, the construction store, storage unit. And so in the morning, all the guys would come and I would like take inventory of what's going out, what's going in. I'll do all the menial stuff, and I'll like clean up the surrounding, and I'll just be done. And so I'll like, if I'm just sitting there, and I would actually go into the site and start working. And then maybe somebody from another part of the site would want to get into the storage unit, and like they couldn't because I had the key and I was out in the fields working at a different location. So that they would have to come look for me. And I actually got in trouble with James. He's like, no, I hired you to sit here. You're supposed to sit here. You're not supposed to go in and work. Right? So I actually got in trouble for that. And yeah, he's like, no, seriously, I know it's boring, but that's the job I needed you for. Because like, he was new to Zambia, and because and I was a person that he knew before he started that job that he was working at the time. And so everybody on the crew, he didn't really trust, right? So he actually told me, he's like, no, you're the guy I trust. I don't know a lot of these other guys, right? But I trust you. So that's why I need you here. I know you want to go work, but you can. I urge you to do this. And yeah, so I just sat there. I was like, I'll fall asleep most of the time. I'll take like naps throughout the day. Yeah, it was boring at the beginning.
But it's what he told you to do.
It just,
yeah.
Yeah. And it was just that. But then I figured, well, since I have a lot of free time on my hands, I might as well just start writing more. So I started writing a lot more. Yeah. So I'll be at work and I'll be writing songs throughout the day. So yeah, so I started writing a lot more at the time. So I spent a whole year just writing a bunch of stuff. And yeah, a couple months in, I actually decided, hey, I'm going to do a mixtape. So I did a collection. I did a mixtape. And yeah, so I had it on Bandcamp. I think that was the first site I uploaded the mixtape to. Yeah, I uploaded it to Bandcamp and actually sold a couple copies, I guess. But yeah, but at that time I had set up like a whole Facebook page and stuff. So I was actually starting to self-promote. I would tell people about it. I'm like, oh, check out my new song and blah, 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 just like everybody else was doing. Yeah. So through the people that saw that, I guess some people actually bought a few copies. But then that's where it hit me. It's like I was so stoked about it, even if it was like so little I made from it. But just to see, I actually made something from this mixtape, right?
That's huge. Yeah,
I made something from it.
It's
but
like
yeah,
an
so
evidence, first evidence that what you're doing is actually working and people are liking it, and it's encouraging, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but then right after that, I think I ran into some issues with the whole payment system thing. So for whatever reason, Zambia is amongst the countries that can't use PayPal. So PayPal is like, when you're doing, anybody who does any payments online, PayPal is like the go-to thing, right? Mm-hmm. It's like the safest thing. It's what everybody uses, right? But apparently in Zambia, you can't use PayPal. It's really not allowed. Like, you can, but there's so many. Yeah. So the restrictions are, if I have a Zambian PayPal account and if I wanted to make a payment to you, I can. But if you wanted to make a payment to me, you can't.
Really? You'd think it would be the other way around, where they wouldn't want money out of the country.
That's so weird. But no, I know they let money out, but they can't accept it in.
Zambian politics.
I didn't know that. I did not know that at the time, and
that's crazy.
So I tried to get in touch with Bandcamp, and they were like, "No, we are sending you the money, but it's just being sent back to us saying we can't send it to you." So I thought that sucked.
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah. So I tried to get into the whole thing, and yeah, I actually found out I could not receive money online, and so.
And you can't set up an account like somewhere else, because that would be like illegal or whatever.
Yeah. It was, yeah. Well, you could, but that would mean you'd have to have a bank account in that.
Oh yeah, because it's linked with your bank. That's
different country. Yeah, so you could, but it's just like a long procedure and whatnot. You probably have to have a lot of money to do that.
Yeah.
Anyways, so that kind of sucked. And see, the thing was, I'd always made music in English. I rapped in English. So, and that I started seeing how that was problematic on my end, because I'm in Zambia, where, yeah, sure, a lot of people speak English. The majority of people speak English, but that still, they can speak it, but it's not the go-to. Everybody prefers the local language, and the music that's being played, the biggest artists in the country aren't doing it in English. They're doing everything in the local language. And I mean, I could rap in Bemba, but for a long time, like starting my whole rap thing, I did it in English, and that's what I bumped to the most. That's what I rocked with. And in as much as, yeah, I listened to a whole lot of Bemba rap myself, but I just didn't rap in Bemba. I actually started rap. I could rap in Bemba, but I didn't think I was as good.
Did it just feel like you were more English? Just was more natural for you? Is that what it felt like? Like as a rapper,
yes.
Not just okay.
Yeah, even just as a writer, like I write in English throughout. I think a lot of people do actually. Actually, it's funny. Like everybody speaks Bemba, but like very few people can actually read and write Bemba, which is weird. It's very weird. Yeah,
but it is a written language.
So, yeah, it is. Yeah, you can. It is written, but just very few people are now, especially now. Like back then, it actually used to be a big part of like the education system, but now it's not as much. It's not like nobody's really big on it. Because I remember I didn't really learn Bemba in school. So, yeah. But there was because like we had 3 exams in your education. You get like 3 major exams. So you get a grade 7 exam, a grade 9 exam, and your final grade 12 exams. So I remember writing my first major exam, my grade 7 exam, and I hadn't learned Bemba. Like I spoke it 90% of the time, but I didn't read or write it, right? Like I went to school and I learned in English. Everything was in English. But then I actually found out, our school found out that we had to do Bemba final exams. It was part of the exams. And we only found out like 2 months before the exams, and we were like, we're doomed. We were supposed to do Bemba as part of the program from the jump, but we did it.
It's hard enough to do an exam as it is, right?
I know. But yeah, I could kind of read and write. It takes me a while to put at the time, it would take me a while to put a sentence together and just read it out loud. So I wasn't a fast Bemba reader at all. And so that was problematic even on the exam. But everything else was fairly easy. But except Bemba was like the hard thing. But after the grade 7 exam, I didn't have to do Bemba at all in my education. Everything else from there was always English. So, yeah. So that also was part of my conditioning and my thought process. Everything was just English, right? So even when it came to writing, it was just English. So, and I realized if this music thing or whatever I was trying to get to was going to work, I was at a major disadvantage. Not only was I in a place where like it's hard enough as it was to be a musician, I was also like doing music, the type of music that was like at the bottom of the chain. So if you were going to make it in Zambia, you would at least have to rap in Bemba. If as a rapper, at least you'd have to rap in Bemba and be super good at it. And that was not the case for me, right? It was hard to get like people, like a lot of people would listen to it, to my music, and they'll think it's cool, but it was just that. It was like a small section of people. But if I wanted to get a broader audience, I'd somehow have to find the kind of people that will listen to English rap. And that's not the mainstream here. That was just not the case at all. And yeah, so that kind of hit me. I was like, oh, darn. So what now, right? So then I figured, well, it's probably if we're looking at it to a point where like I can actually be a Zambian artist living off music, it's definitely not gonna work. I just came to that conclusion. I'm like, yeah, it's definitely not gonna work. So I ended up going back to school for business. So I went back to my old university, the one I just dropped out of, and this time I went into business. Well, but before that, after I took my break, I applied to a different university that was actually offering civil engineering. It was the only second university in the country that did, other than the one that was closed.
The Copperbelt University.
So this was,
that was
the Copperbelt University. So that was closed, and the other one that I could apply to was in a different town, in a different province. And I applied to that one. I got in for civil engineering, but yeah, just before school started. So the one I applied to was not a government university. So that one's a private university. So it was like super expensive as it was. So going into the university, we actually knew it was like pretty hefty. The fees were pretty high. But then just before I started school, they hiked the prices even higher. Right? So it was like, yeah, we were gonna stretch as it was, but now it's even like crazy insane. So again, I was at my wit's end. I was like, oh darn, nothing just seems to be going right at the moment, right? So yeah, so at the time I was like, I really didn't know what I was gonna do with my life. And growing up, I'm like this dreamer that has a lot of things going on, and I came
Mr.
to a point
Phenomenal,
where, like,
right?
Exactly. I came to a point where like I actually absolutely had no idea what I was gonna do. So I loved music, but that was not gonna work. Yeah, I was pretty decent at soccer, but that was not gonna work either. I was I wanted to do all construction, and that was not gonna work. So I was like, oh, bummer. But now, so I got to a place, it was just depressing. Like I started really thinking about it. I'm like, this is very serious, and it became very problematic, and it kind of affected me. And so, yeah, at the time I was staying with my cousin, and he's a business guy. Well, he didn't go to business school. He just does businesses here and there. He runs little things here and there. And he's like, yeah, business is pretty good. Why don't you do business? And then maybe you could run your own construction company after that, right? And he was like, I was like, you know what? That's not a bad idea at all. So I took him up on that. So I decided to go back to my old school, North Rise University, and I was going to go into business. I started into that when I started doing business, and which is what I'm still doing. I have like a year now left. Mm-hmm. So I got into that, and I got back at school. And yeah, at school, at the time I had a little bit of a catalog of music going on. I played, and I somehow played it for like the guys at the dorms, because I was boarding at school. I was at the dorms. And yeah, some of them actually really liked it, and they started putting people onto my music, other people from my school onto my music, and people started knowing about my music, and people started checking it out. And so that got the ball rolling again. And at the time I found out about DistroKid. This is like July, mid 2018. Yeah, I found out about DistroKid and putting out music on multiple platforms, right?
Yeah.
On like Spotify, Apple Music and stuff.
The way of the
and so I
future
signed
of music,
up for that.
right? So
Yeah, I realized, well, yeah, I could probably get other people to stream it if I can't really make it as a Zambian based artist. I could find an audience online, right? And so I uploaded a few tracks on there, and it was going good. And I think the music just like started piling pressure on me. I'm like, oh, what am I going to do? I want to get bigger. I want to get an audience. I want to get people to listen to my music. And it just started giving me a lot of like problems. But at the time I didn't realize it, but it just piled up, and it was like, it started becoming a mental health thing. Like it started affecting me mentally. And because like, oh, I want to do what I can do to like be heard and like actually try to make something out of it, and that the pressure started piling on me.
So there was like a lot of anxiety. Was that mostly what it was? Yeah.
Exactly. It was a lot of anxiety, and as time went on, 2019 is when I actually took the break. I realized it, and I'm like, yeah. Remember when I sat down with myself and I'm like, remember when I started this? I actually didn't want to put it out, right? This was not the goal. This was never the thing. And I hated that it was taking that much. And it was like that big of a deal, right? And so my own bet for my personal health and for the best, I decided to step back. And I was like, man, I think I'm done with putting out music. So I completely stopped putting out music. So I decided to just stop because it wasn't worth it anymore. And I felt like it was just building up the pressure, and I wasn't really getting anything out of it, right? And I looked at it, I'm like, it's not really worth it. If it's gonna come with this burden of like anxiety and everything, at the end of the day, it's not really worth it. I think I'm gonna still write music, and it's just gonna be how I always used to do it. Just something I did. There was no pressure. Like, it didn't matter if the song sucked or anything. It didn't matter it didn't matter. None of that mattered. Like, nothing mattered other than the fact that I was making it and I was having a good time doing it.
You're just writing it because you love music at this point.
Exactly. It was like, but it got to a place where that was not the case anymore. Like I was just writing music to have something to put out, to like, and you'd also like try to make something that sounds like something that people would like. It wasn't like I was making music that I genuinely just loved. It was also influenced by even the people around me. Like, I have a lot of hip hop head friends, right? So I was even forcing myself into being like a type of rapper that my friends would like, perhaps, right?
So disingenuous, not like who you are necessarily.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't like, rap wasn't bad. Like, I wasn't like rapping about stuff I didn't believe. I did, but I just like the style I was doing it in. I was trying to be, I don't know. I was trying to be serious about it. I was trying to be a little bit too serious about it. Like, because a lot of my friends are like hip hop heads, and they listen to like a lot of really great rappers, right? Yeah. So you try to put pressure on yourself. Oh, I need to become a better lyricist. I need to write better. I need to do everything 10 times better than I'm doing it now, and that just keeps piling.
You're like trying to be Drake or something, like, you know, just like the best.
Oh, not even Drake, because like a lot of like Drake is a feel good rapper, right?
Okay.
Like he can be lyrical, but he's a whole lot feel good than a lot of other rappers. So like Kendrick Lamar or like J. Cole.
I see
like
what you're
trying
saying.
to be deep. Exactly.
You're trying to write like the next Illmatic.
Yeah, exactly. Which not even Nas can beat, apparently.
Yeah, I don't know. It's really funny that you mentioned that, because I was talking about this with my friend Murad as well, who was on the first episode, and he was saying just how much it hit him lately. Just don't take yourself too seriously, and you'll be way better.
Exactly. And I realized that. I'm like taking myself too seriously and all that pressure, so that's why I stopped. I'm like, I'm probably still gonna do music, but I'm gonna do it on my terms. If I just randomly feel like writing something, I'll write it. And if I do feel like recording it, I'll record it and I'll keep it on my phone. So it reached that point. So I just stopped making music, and yeah, the whole Kay Rok thing just like stopped. Yeah. And so I just recently started. So I started putting out stuff earlier this year. Last month I put out my first work. But that was because, so I would write and I ended up recording a bunch of stuff, and I just kept it on my phone. I didn't plan on putting it out. So I'll do that. I'll just write and record. So I actually had my late cousin who just passed away. She got COVID.
Oh, I'm
she
sorry
just
to
passed
hear.
away. Yeah, thanks. She actually liked my music. She really enjoyed my music. Every time I record something, she's like, I know you say you're not gonna put out stuff anymore, but every time you record something, play it to me. And I'll do that. And she would always tell me that I don't know why you stopped putting it out. She's like, I know it was putting pressure on you and all that, but why don't you just put it out without the pressure this time? Just don't think too much into it. Just put it out and let whoever want to listen to it, right? And I would always tell her, like, I'll think about it. And then sadly, she passed away just in January. And I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to start putting it out again. I'm just going to release it. So, yeah, is that
kind of like for her as well, like just a bit of an homage to, yeah.
Exactly. It was like, I think she would have loved, she always wanted me to do it. So I was like, no, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to put it out. So,
wow.
Of all the songs I had in my phone, I think there was Drown was a song. So the reason I put Drown out as the first one was because when I was recording at a studio that I record at, there's this. So it's a great story, actually.
Oh yeah.
So there's a rapper. He was like on the low key. He's underground, but he actually had like a mainstream song in Zambia for a while. And I was like, this is way back when I was like in grade 9, right? And I had heard about it. So he was like, at the time, he was doing pretty good. He had a major song that came out. He did it with like the single best rapper in Zambia at the time and now.
And
so
who's
he
that?
collabed with him. There's a guy called Chef 187.
Chef
Numero
187.
Uno. Yeah. So he's like, yeah, he's been the best ever since he started putting out music.
Dang.
Yeah.
I'll have to
So
check it out.
he did a song with.
I won't understand.
Yeah, but I'm pretty sure you'll vibe to it. Like, he's just got a good vibe. I think even if you didn't really understand what he was saying, you'd vibe to it. Yeah.
Sick.
So anyways, so this guy had a song with Chef 187, and at the time was like the biggest rap song, right? And I knew about him, and I remember being a huge fan of him at the time. And so when I was recording Drown, this was sometime last year, and I wasn't like, at the time I wasn't putting out music, so I would just like hang out at the studio and just record stuff when I had stuff to record, right? And so there was this one day I happened to be mixing Drown, the song, amongst the other songs I was working on, and he just had his session before me, so he did his session, and he just hung back in the studio and just chilled, and I got onto the computer and I started mixing the song, and he heard it. He's like, "Yo, who's this?" Right? Dang. And I'm like, "Oh no, it's just some guy." I actually played it off, and I was like, "Nah, it's just some guy. I'm just editing the song." Right? Yeah. And he really, really liked it. And see, the funny thing was, I didn't know who he was at the time.
Oh my goodness!
Like I didn't realize who he was at the time, and then it hit me. I'm like, "Oh dang, that is." But I still I just played it off like I didn't know who he was. I was just,
jeez.
I was like, I'm gonna be so cool about it. I didn't even know who he was. I let him introduce himself to me.
Bro, that's amazing. That's amazing. That's so. You're like, yeah. I'm gonna be chilling this high. That's the vibe.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened, man. I was like, I'm such a jerk, but I'm just gonna play it off like this. So I did. I humbled him a little, I guess.
Oh my goodness, that's hilarious.
I just played it
one of the biggest
cool.
guys in Zambia, and you're just like, it's
Yeah, I was like, I didn't really know. Oh, not the biggest guy.
Okay.
No, the guy that he was at the time. He's not anymore. He did a song with the biggest guy. That was the biggest song at the time. But no, not the biggest guy. No, this wasn't Chef 187. This was a dude that did a song with him. This was a different,
Okay,
so, because this was a guy I really jammed to. This guy was a super fan too, right?
Yeah.
And I'm playing it super cool. Like I didn't even know who the guy was. So So he hit me up. He's like, "Yo, who really did this?" And then so this other producer, the main producer. So I just I just like to be a part of every single thing. Every single process when it comes to my music. So I write it all, I record it, and I'm not the main guy that mixes and masters the whole thing, but I like to be a part of it. I wanna engineer how I want to sound. So I'll be there every step of the way, right? So I was only on the computer at the time, just trying to edit some things while waiting for the main producer to come in, right?
Okay.
So the main guy comes in, actually, he takes over. And so the guy's still there, and he asks the main producer, he's like, "Yo, who's the guy on the song?" And he's like, "Well, it's this guy." And I just said it wasn't my song.
So you look like an idiot at this point.
Yeah, I'm like, "Oh, yeah, sorry, dog. I was just playing. But yeah, this is my song." It was pretty funny. And so he actually genuinely liked the song. And he's like, "Yo, we should work on this together. Do you have a free verse I could jump on this very song?" I'm like, "No, sorry, not in this one." Because again, this was just at the time I was recording this for me. I was just going to listen to it in my phone anyways. So I was like, I could work with you on your project. You're probably going to put out your project, so I might as well work with you on a song that's going to be out, because I didn't intend for this song to be put out, right? And yeah, he said, okay, yeah. So we exchanged numbers and whatnot, and yeah. So he's like, I'll hit you up. We should work together. And so, yeah, he left, and I actually explained the whole thing to the producer. I'm like, yo, so this is just what happened, and he was laughing. But yeah, so when I did decide to start putting out music, I was like, there's so many to pick from. I have a lot of unreleased songs because I was just recording stuff that I felt like recording. I actually recorded some songs that I actually gave away as projects to other people. So I know, like, a friend of mine was actually doing a mixtape of his own. So I gave him a song off that because I was just recording stuff. So I had just a lot I was sitting on, a lot of like just ideas of songs, partly recorded, some finished, some not. I just had a bunch of projects. So when I decided to start putting out music, I was like, I could just, since I have a lot anyways, I could just like put out a song every month, right? So I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna do that. So I thought through, I was like, what's the song to put out? I wanted, when I thought of putting out music, there was this song I did with Pow Fu. There's a Canadian rapper called Pow Fu.
I don't.
Oh, you probably know this song. He was on. He did the song Deathbed. The Don't Stay Away Too Long. That
really?
song. So that guy. Yeah. So I actually had a song with him.
What?
So
how did I not know this?
Yeah. Oh yeah. So he actually came. His mom, his sister, and him came. They were in Zambia just before he blew up, actually. So
no way.
So this is another interesting story. So
yeah, let's hear.
I remember not being around when he came. So he came through, and I just came, and I knew there was a team from Canada that was in the main house, and I just vaguely knew about it. I didn't really know any specific individual that was on the team. I'd heard there was a team coming, as they usually do. So I didn't know anybody. Usually I would know people before they come. If I'd met them before, I would know such and such a person's on the team. But this team, I didn't know anybody. And so I was in my room, and I remember, and there was a knock on my door, and it was Justin. He was at my door. He came in my room. He's like, "Yo, there's a white boy here looking for you." Right? But I was like, "What? White boy? I know there's a team here, but I don't know anybody on the team. Why is he looking for me?" Right? And so I walk out. There's this skinny white boy in the living room. Super chill guy. He was super chill looking. He said, "Hey, you must be Arnold. I heard about you." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm Arnold. What's your name?" And he said, "Izzy." And I thought, like, the first thing that came to my head, he said Izzy. I was like, "Whoa, that's a cool name. You should be a rapper." And he happened to be a rapper. Yeah.
That's how you
like,
tell when someone has a cool name like that. No other explanation.
Yeah, it just like, yeah, if that was my name, I'll go off that name as my rap name. It just sounded like a really cool sounding name. Yeah, I was like, yeah, you should be a rapper. Yeah, I actually do rap. And I was so we just sat down and we started talking. I'm like, yo, I met a rapper here, and we were talking, and he said somebody told him that I rapped, and he's like, yeah, I do. And we just kind of talked about music. And I remember he played me some of his stuff. It was super different from the stuff I do. So remember, this was the time I was like trying to be a rapper, like a hip hop guy, right?
This was your your Nas experience.
Yes.
You're like Biggie, Tupac. It's like the
yeah. And so he played me something, and it was something very different. Like, it's hip hop, but it was lo-fi hip hop. At the time, I'd only vaguely heard about it. I didn't really like take time to say, oh, let me listen to some lo-fi hip hop. And he played me some of his stuff, and I was blown. I was like, yo, this guy's amazing. This kid's insane. Like, his writing, like, oh man, I was a fan right from the jump. I heard it and I was like, yo, this is insane. And he played me a couple of his songs. And at the time, so his biggest song till date, which is Deathbed, he had just recorded it and he couldn't put it out on like major streaming platforms. It wasn't out yet, like on like Spotify or Apple Music, because it had a sample that he couldn't get cleared, right? So this was just, and at the time it was just amongst his songs. It was just one of his songs. So I listened to a whole bunch of his songs, and I kept going back to, I went back to it. He asked me, so which one do you like the most? I was like, yeah, I think this one's the one. This one's a really good one.
Get out of here.
He actually said, well, I've heard like some of the people that listen to his music already told him that was their favorite. And I actually told him, yeah, man, this is my favorite too. And I
Get out of here.
I just met him. I just heard of him. I just met him that day. Right?
That's crazy. That song's so big on TikTok.
I know. I know. And I told him, I'm like, yeah, this was definitely my favorite. And so the very next day, I remember, was a holiday, and it was a Zambian holiday, so there was no work noon. This was during the time I was on break from school, so I worked with the construction crew at Grace. So I wasn't going to work the very next day. I wasn't going to work because it was a holiday. And he told me he just wanted me to take him, because he was new to Zambia, and he wanted me to take him around town, right? He said he wanted to experience the Zambian experience, or he wanted to know what like I did on a day-to-day, or whatever I did. And he asked if I could even show him my studio, the studio I recorded from. At the time, I recorded from a different studio than I do now. So, I was like, yeah, cool, man, we can do it. So the very next day, so I met him that night. The very next morning, we went into town and I started showing him around. And we went to the studio and we got in the studio, and he was like, yeah, so this is actually my first time being in a studio, in an actual studio, because he records in his bedroom. He has a bedroom studio.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah. So I want to experience it. I remember telling him, well, it might be different from a Canadian studio, but he said he'd never been to a Canadian studio. He just recorded in his bedroom. And I was like, well, so this is your first studio experience. And we were there. We were just checking things out. So we were just saying hi to the guys and whatnot. And he's like, you know what? Why don't we do a song together? And I was like, heck yeah, let's do it. So I actually went online, looked for a royalty-free beat, so that I actually wanted to do something that sounded like his stuff. I didn't want to do something like I usually did. Though I remember he actually told me, he's like, no, just do whatever you do. I'll jump on whatever your style is. And I was like, no, you know what? I'm really feeling your vibe right now. I want to do something you're doing, right? And so we got a beat that was more suited to his style. And so we sat down right there. We did not know we were going to record a song. We just met last night. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So, he's like, so what do you want to write about? So I just kind of told him the concept. We're like, what about this concept? And he just, right there, I told him, because he's super good with melodies. I could hear it. The first time I heard him, he's like, his melodies are insane. So I was like, you do the hook and I'll do the verse. I'll do the verses. Cool. He just sat down. Took us like 15 minutes and we wrote a whole song and we recorded it, and it was so good on his end. He did so incredibly good. I was mind blown. I had not worked with somebody this good at the time, I think. He was like too good. And I heard the song, I was not happy with my verse. I heard his part, it was like super good. This is such a great song. But my verses were like, I wasn't really feeling them. He's like, yeah, it's okay, you should just put it out. And this time, because like even at the time, he had quite a fan base going on, right? So he's like, yeah, you could do it, and I'll post it on my platform, and I'll get my supporters to listen to the song, and it could be big that way. And I actually told him, you know what? No, I'm not feeling it. I'm really not. I'm like, sorry, but like you did such a great job, and I just feel like I didn't live up to it. Like I can do better. I know I can. So he's like, yeah, okay, whatever. You can rewrite your verse if you want it. I was like, yeah, I think I'll do that. So he ended up going. He left, and and the rest was history. He actually blew up shortly after I met him, and the next thing I know, I'm checking on Billboard, and his song's like number 23 on Billboard, on the Billboard Hot 100. And I'm like, yikes.
You're like, I missed the boat.
Yeah. I'm like, yeah, had I put out that song, well, at the time I could still put it out, and he was buzzing at the time. I could put it out, but I was just not happy with my end of the song.
Could you still put it out? Would he still be down to?
I did it. That's where we're getting to.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Continue with your story. This is amazing.
Yeah,
this is such a fun podcast so far. Continue.
Yeah, well, at the time, I could still put it out, but I didn't. This was the time where like I was in that zone where like I'm putting a lot of pressure, and it was bringing me a lot of anxiety, the whole music thing. And so I just felt like, and especially knowing that he was doing that well at the time, I knew just putting the song out would get me a buzz that I never had before. I'd probably get a few thousand people that never heard of me before, right? Just by having him on the song. And I did not want to put it out because I didn't feel like I did a good job on the song. I was like, I really need to sit down and redo this song. And see, that was the difference. He just came up with the thing in like 15 minutes when we were at the studio. I know I came up with something in 15 minutes also, but I did not like what I did. I felt like I needed to really focus into this and do this song, right? And well, I had actually so when we recorded everything, I actually sent the entire file to him for him to edit. So he was going to produce the entire song, and which he did. He actually finished the production. So he actually did do it. He sent it back. And I was just, the only thing was me putting it out. And I still told him, I'm like, yeah, I explained to him, I'm like, yeah, I don't think I'm feeling my verses on this. And I think I'll just rewrite to it, right? And I didn't really get to the point where I would rewrite it, because that was around the time I started realizing what was going on, and I decided to stop putting out music. Right, so that was just a project. So that was always something I looked back to. I was like, yo, I actually have a song with one of the hottest artists, not only here, but in the world right now. And that's not going to be ever heard. And I'm not putting out music ever again. So that was a bummer. So when I did start putting out music, right, which was this year, I was looking through the songs. well, I ended up going with the Drown because of the whole story I just told about meeting the guy that I was a fan to that ended up liking that song. So that's why I chose that one to be the first song. I was going to put out the Powerful song first, but actually what had happened was, since he had the files to the song, right? He had the files to the entire project, that song we did together. I think what ended up happening, and I was done with music, right? So it was fair enough. I'd stopped putting out music. I was not putting out music anymore. So I think he ended up giving the song to somebody else.
Oh.
So I think that's what happened, right? Yeah. So, but miscommunication or something. He didn't tell me he did that, but I actually found the song on Spotify. And I heard it. I'm like, wait, I heard the beat. I'm like, I know that beat. And I heard him sing the hook. And it was like, wait, isn't this my song? Right? And yeah, so when I heard it, I'm like, oh, there's another artist on it. So because I'm guessing like after the time he just blew up, a ton of people wanted features from him. Right? And so that song was just in his archives, I assume. And so he ended up giving it to somebody else.
Because he just thought that you didn't want to go through it with it or whatever.
Exactly. So at the time that I did want to put out the song, I couldn't because I could, but it was already out. Like that same song was out. It would just be out. So I was like, oh, okay, cool. I'll just put out Drown instead. So that's the reason as to why I put out Drown as the first song, because I couldn't put out the Powerful song, and that there was all that story of like a guy I was a huge fan of, and he became a huge fan of me because he heard that song. So that's why I decided to put out Drown as the first single. Yeah.
Dang. Do you think you'll get a chance to collab with him on a different project, or?
Hopefully, I wish I do, but
yeah,
he's now like signed. He's now under like big record label. He's under Universal now. So
wow,
and you know how it is. Like it's hard to get to work with like signed artists.
And by the way, for people who aren't musicians at all, like it might seem like, oh, you should have just put that out there and that was a big mistake, and you know that's makes no sense why you would do that. But I think it's important to just say that it's such a personal thing, writing songs, that if it doesn't feel like 100%, you're not alone. Like everyone I know does that, where they have a song that by anyone who listens to it is like, yeah, put it out right now. But you as the musician, you're like, no, I don't feel that it's 100% there. And that might not be the right way to think about it, but it is just the way that the minds of musicians work. So I just thought
that's true.
That's just something maybe worth saying, right? Because it's so personal, right?
It is. Yeah, it sure is. Because even the putting out the song later on, I wasn't gonna put out the original version. I actually did rewrite a verse that I was comfortable with, but I still couldn't put it out. I still couldn't put it out because it was already out as a different song. So
did he give you a credit on it?
Credit? No, they didn't use any of my lyrics.
Oh, but didn't you come up with? Oh no, he came up with the hook, and that was just you took.
He came up with the hook, so it was his song.
Yeah.
Technically, without my part of it, it was his song. Even though it was like a song that was supposed to be initially mine, but since none of my lyrics were on it, so it's not really mine.
And you took the beat from online, so that's just
I just got a royalty-free beat because I'm cheap. I don't buy beats.
Wow.
Because that's the thing, that's the other thing. Like a ton of producers that I'd like to buy beats from are like in the West, right? And I'm from Africa, and there's a little economical difference. Somebody, I don't know what, a lot of people would charge like $20 United States a beat to Westerners, that might seem like, it's just $20 or whatever. Here, that's a significant amount of money. That's like, you'd have to work a long time to get $20 is what I'm saying.
Like once you transfer the currency.
Yeah, in my end, it's like, super expensive to buy a beat. So I would rather go for like a royalty-free beat, or have like a friend of mine that makes beats. I'll usually get beats from him. But if I just want to download a beat, I'll get a royalty-free one so that I can just use that instead. So although I've actually bought a beat before, like it was like $20 also, but it was like a super good one. Like I really like the beat. And I don't care if I have to work for a long time to actually be able to afford it. I really like the beat, and I ended up buying it. But that was the only case. Usually I just like look for royalty-free beats, so I have a friend of mine make it, and I'll pay him, and he's Zambian, so it's not as much.
It's more reasonable for...
Exactly.
Huh. Wow, well that's a crazy experience, and a bunch of crazy experiences. But I really like the song, and I'm really looking forward to the new stuff that's gonna come out. Hopefully, there'll be some great collabs. I don't really make hip hop much, but otherwise I'd be like, we should do a collab. But maybe we will one day. I don't know.
we could. Like that's the thing. Like I remember how I was like, I'm just this hip hop guy. I think that kind of changed. Even the kind of music that I was writing and I will be putting out is not the typical rapper music type. Like you heard Drown, it wasn't anything I'd put out before.
It did sound like there was some lo-fi rap influence as well, or hip hop.
Yeah, it like because I started listening to a lot more different kind of music, and that's the kind of stuff I listen to the most. So that's the kind of stuff I end up writing. And so definitely we could work. I mean, you never know.
You never know where things are going to go. So where are you going? Just one quick question that maybe you can briefly touch on before I ask my closing question that I've been asking everyone, because I've kept enough of your time, especially with the beginning taking so long. So obviously you've had a lot of experiences in starting to work on creating your music, and there's been a lot of peaks and a lot of valleys along the way, and now you're in a place when you're trying to approach it a little bit more on your own terms, as you mentioned. Where do you see yourself moving forward, and like how can people who are interested in getting your music find it, and maybe just touch a little bit on that.
I feel like I'm constantly gonna be putting out music pretty much. Because I figured dropping a song one at a time is the best way to go. Mm-hmm. And like before, I would do like mixtapes and EPs. I'm not doing that anymore because that used to be. It used to be pretty hard because you work so much on a compilation, and the songs that would only pop off would be like very few, like 2, 4 at most, and you'd have like a project with like 18 songs. People only really listen to like 4. So I figured if I just drop one at a time, then they could just listen to that because there's no pressure. So I think for the foreseeable future, I'm gonna be dropping a song every month because I have a ton out already, and I feel like the kind of music I'm putting out now is not just like, I'm not just hip hop. It's just whatever I feel like. If I feel an instrumental, I'll just write to it. It doesn't have to be rap. I feel like you just have to, if you listen to my songs and if you like the vibe, you're gonna like it. If you don't, you're not. And see, that's the thing. My music is out everywhere. So Spotify, Apple Music, the like.
At Kay Rok, Kayrok.
Yeah, Kayrok.
Yeah.
Kay Rok.
Pretty sweet.
And
kind of the theme of this podcast is stories, and I think that's really interesting, especially because today was just it was like an extended narrative, and it worked really well as a story too. I mean, obviously it's not the entire story of like everything that happened, but it's a skeleton of a story for the music, and some really great moments in there. But the question I've been asking is if you could tell one story or one message or lesson, and it can be specific, but usually it's a little more general, that you got from your life so far, that you could reach everyone and get through all the noise of the world and all the misinformation and just really communicate your message or your idea or your story, what would that be?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Like, I actually listened to like 2 episodes already, and I heard on the second one you actually asked that question. I was like, that really is a good question. And yeah, I think our episode, it wasn't like you mentioned, it's not like a lot of storytelling. It was just like a narrative, as you put it.
Yeah.
And
which I love, by the way.
I actually like that too. But if I was gonna send a message, as you put it, to everybody that goes above the noise, I think it would just be that it would be a couple, but at the end of the day, yeah. But at the end of the day, even in relation to the narrative we just had of my music, I think everybody's kind of heard this before, but I'll just like emphasize on the point that I feel like you should take life as it comes. Sometimes we focus too much on what's to come, or we spend time we spend time looking at what happened or focusing on whatever happened to me. And I feel like an important message that everybody needs to get is that we don't always get to decide the circumstances that we get to go through, but we always get to decide how we react to them, right?
Wow.
And yeah, so whatever comes your way, if you really can't do anything about it, don't beat yourself up about it. Just try to enjoy the moment. Don't focus too much on what's not here yet or what's happened. Just like I feel like we should live every day as it comes. Like if a lot of people understood that, they would be a whole lot happier. Like I have witnessed that, I've experienced that, and I've learned that. And like just living in the moment, live where you are right now. Don't focus too much on what's unknown or what already happened. Just like take every day as it comes.
Man, I love that. That's, yeah, like you said, that's something that I think everyone's heard before, but it's one of those reminders that I think you can't hear enough. And even though you know it on the brain level, sometimes we don't really implement it in our lives, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it's something that we overlook, and it's like, we've heard that before. But just taking time to actually sit and think about it.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for hopping on the podcast. It's been so much fun to have you, and really great story, great conversation, some great moments. I hope to have you back at some point. I mean, I'm sure.
I'd love to be back. I actually have a homie that had the podcast. I don't know if it's still going on. He hasn't dropped anything, but he's never had me on. So gift in case you get to hear this. What's up with that?
Sweet.
But
yeah.
Anyways,
send me that podcast too, and I'll listen to it.
I will. It was an honor. First podcast. I was a little nervous at times, but
oh yeah. No, I'm still perpetually nervous. I'm like, what is a podcast? I don't know. I think it's just talking with someone and then making other people listen to it. But
Yeah, but it was a great experience, man. I really appreciate the opportunity to be on. If you ever want to have me on again, just I'd love to come back.
Absolutely, we will do that for sure.
Thanks for tuning in. Episode 5 coming soon.
Hey, yo, Parrish, this shit high, boy.
I took 2 pills. Don't worry, girl, I'll be alright. She loves cheap thrills. The way she looking at me when I got my ice on. How right now? Shawty like how? Wow. Feel like I'm a drown.
Yeah, I need a little something trying to snap back to reality.